right, everybody. It's really wonderful to see how much conversation there is between neighbors, maybe people getting to know folks they haven't met before. We're going to start to call the meeting to a start. And so before we do, just want to give a bit of a thanks and an acknowledgement to Delight for supplying our meal tonight. Thank you for that. And then I think we'll shift into the welcome and the introductions. We have some microphones coming around, but we continue to sometimes struggle with AV challenges. And so I think we're getting the last of those sorted. But while that's happening, just want to ask folks, when you introduce yourself, to please share your name and your pronouns and what ward you live in. And then also try to hold the mic even a little bit closer than you think you should. It seems to be that, yeah, a lot closer. It seems that we tend to err on the side of being quieter with the mic. So don't be shy about holding it close. And then one other note before I forget, if anyone has capacity to stay for a few moments at the end and help us put away chairs and help with a little bit of tear down and clean up, that would be so appreciated. Okay, thanks, Vicki. Thank you. Okay. So let's see. I'll start and then maybe I'll start with the microphone over here. My name is Annie Lawson. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Ward 4. And I'll pass over and maybe we'll just keep the mic moving around while we're getting the last of them sorted. Oh, thank you, Hank. Yes, I'm a member of the steering committee. So thanks for that reminder. And also, yes, if you hold an elected seat or you hold a different role in our community, please don't be shy about sharing that so that neighbors get to know who we all are and how we participate in our community.
Hello, everybody. Nice and close. My name is Martine LaRock-Ulick. I am one of your state senators. I'm also one of your school board commissioners, and I'll be talking to you a little bit later, but it's good to see you. I live in Ward 4.
Thanks. Sarah Carpenter. I live in Ward 4. I use she, her pronouns, and I am your city councilor from Ward 4.
Hi, I'm Patrick Roach, and I am from Ward 4.
Carol Roach, Ward 4. Jane McDonald, Ward 7.
Stephen Brown, Ward 7.
Linda Ayer, Ward 4.
James Palmer, Ward 4.
Sandra Gazo, Ward 4.
Mark Leopold, Ward 4, he, him. Ward 4, and also the North District City Council.
I'm Christine Hope, and I loved Ward 7 so much. I moved back a year ago after 40 plus years. So, love the neighborhood.
Joanne Hunt, Ward 4, NPA steering committee member, she, her pronouns. She, whatever.
Vicki Garrison, Ward 7, she, her pronouns.
Caitlin Attenborough, she, her pronouns, Ward 4.
Martha Malpas, she, her pronouns, Ward 7.
I'm Hank Prensky from Ward 4. I'm a member of the steering committee, and I lived in Burlington 54 years ago, and I came back.
Linda Looney, she, her pronouns. I'm from Ward 4, and I'm currently the president of the North End Food Pantry.
Michael Horton, Ward 7, he, him.
Peggy Horton, 7, she, her.
Sammy McCrae, Ward 4. Ward 4. I use she, her pronouns.
We may actually be Ward 7. We don't know where we're at.
Hi, Julie Silverman, she, her pronouns, Ward 7, and I work for the Conservation Law Foundation, and I am your Lake Champlain Lake Keeper.
Lynette Reed, Ward 7.
Harry Bonson, Ward 7.
Susan Ogden, Ward 4, she, her.
My name is Ree Wilson and I'm from West Virginia. I'm visiting with Susan and Hank if you want to feel sorry for me. She, her.
Leacher Hume, Ward 4, she, her. Karen Chickering, Ward 7, she, her.
Chris Aisley, Ward 3. I'm here representing the All Wards NPA tonight. Thank you.
Caleb Usati, Ward 7.
Chris Hardy, Ward 7.
Kathleen Miles, Ward 4, she, her.
Ward 7. She, her. Brian Kling, Ward 4.
Lauren Tachi, she, her, Ward 7. Leslie Becker, Ward 7, she, her pronouns. Mary Jane McMahon, Ward 7.
McMahon, Ward 7.
Mark Montalban, he, him pronouns. I live on Green Acres Drive. I'm Ward 4.
Missa Aloisi, Ward 2, but I am also a candidate for the Vermont House Representative. So you'll see my name on the ballot for the Democratic at the Democratic primary, August 13th.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'm realizing I think I did things out of order. I think we were supposed to adopt the agenda before we did the introductions. And so I think that my job is to ask if there's a motion to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. Great, we've got some, and a second. All in favor? Great, thank you. I don't know if we actually have to vote on it, but we'll do it. All right, and then one last thing I'm realizing, do we have anybody on Zoom who would like to introduce themselves? I can't tell if we have any participants there. Okay, great. We'll give folks a moment if they want to chime in that way. Hey there, Robert, go ahead.
Sorry. Hi, Ward 7, Robert Bristol Johnson. Bye.
Great, thank you. Anybody else online who wants to virtually introduce yourselves? All right. So then we'll shift into the open forum portion of the meeting. And this is a chance for folks just to share with neighbors updates or concerns or maybe even just like ask questions of the room so that we're all having an opportunity just to be connected in this way and share information. So we'll try to get you a microphone if there's not one near you already. But is there anybody? Oh, and I should also say, please, before you share your update or your announcement, please also say your name again so that folks have a bit of reference. Do we have anybody with any announcements?
Hi, I'm Linda Looney, Ward 4. I'm here to talk a little bit about the North End Food Pantry and the fact that we have an online presence now, if anybody's not aware of that, but we're also looking for people for volunteers. We have Saturday and Sunday morning volunteer slots, some only 30 minutes, 45 minutes. What we do is on Saturdays and Sundays, Hannaford very graciously gives us food, which we go and pick up. So we need people with pickup trucks or vans to load that into their vehicles and then take it down to the Heineberg Senior Center, which is where at this point, since we don't have, the rest of our pantry is housed in the Oddfellows, which does not have very good parking. We distribute at the Heineberg Senior Center. And that starts at 9 o'clock. It's an easy, fun thing to do. We've got a lot of great volunteers. I know Lee has volunteered before. We have a core group, Tom Fleury. Of course, he started this pantry 11 years ago, so he's sort of the patriarch of the whole thing. But we are looking for some people to sort of help us out and get to know what happens in our community as far as feeding the insecure, the food insecure with the food that we have. And then one other thing I wanted to mention is this Sunday from 9 to 11, we're doing a next clothing drive. Once a month, the last Sunday of every month, we do a clothing drive. This way we can sort the clothes and get them ready for the people that do the boutique. There is the pantry from 9 to 11 on Saturdays and Sundays. Downstairs in the Oddfellows has the non-perishable items for people, which is if you participated in the U.S. Postal Service food drive, all that food went to us, or if you've had a neighborhood collection, all that food has gone to us, and people are able to come in and get that. Clothing for anybody is free. We don't charge a thing. It's not a thrift store. It's just a place to get clothing. But we're very careful to make sure that the things that we're giving out are clean and in good condition and seasonably appropriate, because we do not have a lot of storage space there. So if you're cleaning out your closets and your sizes changed this summer and you have some stuff that you don't want anymore, or maybe you have too many bathing suits, or maybe, whatever, we're looking for summer clothing, like jackets, even men's sports shirts. We would even take some men's dress pants, because if somebody's coming in and has a job or needs to go for a job interview, for those items too. So that's from 9 to 11. We're located, if you drive into the Oddfellows, you'll see a door and goes up the steps, and you just come and drop your clothes off and leave. So we're also collecting pet food at that time. We have a lot of our people who come to the pantry who have pets. And, when you're food insecure, your pet's food is food insecure as well. So think about us. It's a part of your neighborhood. We're here, and it's every Saturday, every Sunday. Take a look at the northendfoodpantry.org. If you can put that in your minutes. There is a link in there to volunteer. You can set up, there's a Google sign up form that you can use to sign up. And then we have a sign up genius form once we get all your information that we will send you. So you can pick, you go once every 6 months. You can like it, you can do it every week, but it's not a big commitment. And again, we're mostly over by 9 o'clock.
Thank you. Anybody else wanting to speak?
Yeah, I'm Mark Montalban. So I live at 45 Green Acres Drive. I'm 6 houses down on the left side. So we purchased the property in 2013 and doing improvements, going over with zoning and planning. I noticed there seemed to be a couple of quirks with the plant. And two things came up, because I did share very briefly with Sarah Carpenter. Apparently, when things were zoned originally and split into parcels, I won't get into the weeds here because it basically was 320 parcels out of originally a farm in that whole section. There's sort of like a wave that happens when you get to 32 that was unintentional. It's where Al and Jesse Wagner live, just a couple houses away. And so two things that came up was, what's this little 10-foot regress? I was told to ignore it. I was told that it was applicable. It was not going to be applicable because there never would be a sidewalk put there. So a lot of people who moved in, and we've had a lot of newer people who purchased properties on Green Acres. I'd say about 1 out of 5 houses have been purchased within the last 10 years. I have no idea that there is a 10-foot regress that can go on either side. So the scoping thing about the sidewalk is concerning, because I'm a beekeeper. I do urban permaculture. I won't speak, my neighbor Ren Rayner does. If you come by our properties, she does the Miss Rennett's Donuts and everything. We have plants, we have trees, we have stuff established. So my concern is realizing technically that the city in theory can pull 10 feet off either side of our property all the way down, which also should concern Stanberry and also concern Cottage Grove. So I've been trying to get more information about it. I know very briefly, I was told flyers were put out. I will tell you, this time of the year, I got flyers for clearing my gutter, for replacing my driveway, for cutting my lawn, which is kind of funny because I don't have a lawn. It is all natural pollinators. And between walking the dog, and I deliver eggs and honey, not that I'm trying to promote my business, but I am in a way, is people are not really inside the loop. So, and I think you were at a meeting earlier, so I think they're getting our feedback. But one thing we should really make sure is that they do not, through eminent domain, use a regress of 10 feet. Because if you look at your property and go back 10 feet, it impacts a lot. So I really want us to consider that, especially not just on that street, but in some ways, possibly maybe down the road, visiting city council and seeing what is the protocol to maybe removing the idea. Because what I'd like to see, without getting too long-winded here, is for those of us who don't have sidewalks, who do not want sidewalks, can we keep it as part of a natural property zone without the fear the next people coming in, buying our properties down the road or passing it on to our kids are going to know the city can go ahead and put literally a sidewalk on that. So I just want to start that discussion because I've talked to about 25, 26 neighbors, and they're all like, what are you talking about? You got to be kidding me. So I want to at least start approaching it and then talk with councilors about that. Thank you.
Sarah, you had a comment?
Thanks, Mark. And Mark kind of leaped into the middle of a conversation, and I just want to make sure people know what Mark was referring to. Just on Monday night, there was a meeting with the city, which is at the very beginning of a sidewalk scoping study for 6 or 8 streets in the New North End that never were built or zoned to have sidewalks. And after decades of people requesting sidewalks, the city was able to get a grant from the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission to begin looking at all the issues, including rights of way, widths, whether we should have them, not have them on one side. So this is a very beginning process. There was the meeting on Monday. There is a survey out, and I'll try to get it out to more people. They're going to be doing the technical work through the fall, and we'll have another public meeting, and they really want everybody's input. Once that's kind of through the process, it will actually go to the committee that Mark Barlow sits on for the city council for review. And then who knows what's next. I will tell you, the requests has come from lots of citizens. Probably the biggest impediment won't be money. So, don't be looking for a sidewalk anyway soon. But I really encourage you to pay attention, and we'll try to get as much information out as possible.
Thank you. Okay, I see like 3 or 4 hands, so maybe I'll just go in this order to save me some walking. And I think we missed you in intros. Do you mind just saying your name again?
Hi, apparently I was missed during intros intentionally, because I didn't want to. I'm Joanne, and I just wanted to give a rebuttal to what Mark is saying, is that I am not familiar with the situation on Green Acres, but in regards to the situation on Stanbury Road, I've almost gone hit multiple times walking on that street, sometimes in broad daylight. Because there's often, cars, especially trucks that park on that street. And it's very hard to go around them because then I am walking in the street if I'm going around the truck, or I'm walking on someone's lawn, which essentially would be where the sidewalk would go. And I think, to look collectively at everyone's safety and not just your own home area in your land is what we really need to be doing. And I'm glad they are doing a study, and hopefully they'll determine what streets are in most need of a sidewalk to help people be safe. And I'm also, am sincerely hoping that this city can do something to compensate anyone who will be inconvenienced, whether it's landscaping or other permanent or semi-permanent things on their property. But I think, this is just one of those situations where we could be potentially saving lives of people if we're putting sidewalks where we most need them.
Thank you. Okay, and I saw several hands over here, so I'll come to you next. Oh, you were there too? Okay, you're next in the order.
Hi, Joanne, Ward 4. I'm not speaking as an NPA steering committee member. I'm speaking as a longtime nurse and a nurse practitioner. Currently, there are negotiations going on right now up at the hospital with the nurses union. And as somebody who's been in the union and been through a lot of negotiations, including a strike in the past. The last time we had a strike, the community was really awesome in their support. And I hope if you so choose, that you will continue to support us. I think it's really important. Thanks. I can't say it in a short period of time, but there's lots of information out there that I'm happy to put out if you want to.
Thank you.
I just wanted, Lynette Reap, Ward 7. I just wanted to go back to the sidewalk conversation for a moment. And certainly I can understand that there's pros and cons, and it's an issue that's been around for a long time. We also have, we're on the east side of the avenue. It doesn't affect me, but we do walk Green Acres and that loop all the time. And we have planted pollinator friendly plantings right out to, we have a sidewalk, but so I'm can certainly understand where you're coming from on that. One specific concern I have is about Cottage Grove. I know Cottage Grove is an area where people have been saying for a long time that they wanted a sidewalk. My question is just a little bit different, not the homeowner's perspective, but the other side of the street on Cottage Grove has dozens of mature oaks and maples. And my fear is that if the city wants to do a sidewalk and the neighbors don't want to lose part of their front yards, that they're going to say, we're just going to take down all those trees. So it's really important habitat. There's not a lot of streets in the New North End that are just lined with trees. A lot of them have come down in the storms, and I would love to see that preserved.
Thank you.
So I can speak a little bit to the sidewalk issue because I was at the Monday night meeting. There was a lot of conversation about Stanberry. Stanberry seems to be a more where they would possibly set up a sidewalk there. There's a lot of open space and it would really only impact a hosta and a fence. So that is one thing. But the issue of Green Acres and Cottage Grove that came up was exactly what we talked about. There's a lot of mature trees. They'd have to take down like 50% of the mature trees in that area because they sit right up to the curb. But I got to say the Regional Planning Commission was very good at listening to us because I don't think there was maybe one person that was one person that said that they wanted the sidewalk and everybody else that was there was trying to find another alternative to make people safe. And they listened. So one of the alternatives and ideas that came up was to have what do they call them? The bollards and sign and paint one side of the road. And that would be the pedestrian area and then only have parking on the other side of the road. But what it came down to basically in the final of the discussion was the reason why there's problems on Cottage Grove and Green Acres is because there's speed bumps on Tracy. And so all the big trucks decide that they want to avoid Tracy. So they speed down Cottage Grove. The fire trucks do it. Trucks that are delivering to the Jolly do it. And so they're all doing this to avoid the speed bumps. So that was another one we were saying was, while sidewalks are great, there's another issue here that needs to be addressed as well. So props to the committee that was there. They were really good at listening to us and they had maps out and we were able to draw and make suggestions on what could be done. And yes, I mean, I don't want a hotter neighborhood. And I look at all the trees that would have to be taken down in that neighborhood. And also we have terrible drainage. And so all that stuff is going to percolate right into the lake if you have less green material to absorb the water. That was another thing we said, well, if you're going to give us sidewalks with all that runoff, are you going to fix our sewer system? And they were like, no, that's too expensive. So, I mean, you're sort of like chasing good after bad there. So again, I was appreciative of what they had to say. I think they're looking at ideas that we can do beyond disrupting the neighborhood by putting physical sidewalks, at least on Green Acres and Cottage Grove. Stanberry, it was interesting because Cottage Grove and Green Acres don't have the same kind of issues that Stanberry has as far as the newness of the of the area, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that the concerns are serious. People were concerned and they were very good at listening to us and our concerns.
Thank you. All right, I see this hand and that hand and that hand. Okay.
I don't know the road you're talking, but I would like to say to you, without a sidewalk, I would not be here tonight. And you need to think about the accessibility of your community and how people can rent.
Thank you. Is that you?
This is a big issue, and I don't know, and I would encourage the NPA to establish another evening. We can invite DPW to come, the engineer that's doing the work. This is the very beginning of the process. So I think if you all in the steering committee can fix a date, we can ask the city officials to come again and spend more time on it.
That sounds like a good idea. Okay. Back here.
I am Chris Hazley with Ward 3. I'm on the Ward 3 NPA steering committee. I'm also been kind of the facilitator for the all wards steering committee meeting, the next meeting, which will be Thursday, the 29th of August. I think I got the right day. It's the last Thursday in August, the 5th Thursday in August. But I'm here tonight because I was selected along with Jonathan Chappell Sokol from Ward 1 NPA and Lena Greenberg from the Ward 5 NPA to serve on an ad hoc committee established by the City Council's Community Development and Neighborhood Revitalization Committee, chaired by Councilor Newbiser from Ward 1, with members Evan Litwin from Ward 7, and Joe Kane from Ward 3. And the purpose of the ad hoc committee is to improve relations and establish some understanding of what the relationship between the NPAs and the city should be. So I'm here tonight mainly because the names, there was only 3 slots and the names I think were drawn from a hat. I was one of the people apparently drawn. But there's nobody on the ad hoc committee from wards 4 and 7. So I thought that, I should come up here and just say, hey, this is going on. If you guys have anything that, you want to talk about, we'd love to have it. As I understand it, Councilor Newbiser in his capacity as chair will be scheduling the next meeting the week of July the 8th. So I'll let the folks from Ward 4 and 7 know about that. But we want to make sure that folks from the New North End are also included in this conversation, which is why I'm here tonight. Secondly, putting on my Church Street Marketplace Commissioner hat, I am one of the resident commissioners up there, and the marketplace. A lot of people think of the merchants and whatnot, and certainly they have the business association to advocate for them. But the marketplace belongs to everybody in the city, and we want it to be a welcoming and safe place for everyone, both city residents and visitors alike. So if you have any thoughts or opinions on what we can do to improve the atmosphere in the marketplace to make it more safe and welcoming, I would very much like to hear from you. Our next meeting is at Wednesday, July 17th, 9 a.m. in the morning at the Sharon Busher Conference Room at City Hall. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I'm just going to take a moment just to introduce myself so you get a little sense of who I am, since I will be on some of your ballots in August. My name is Miss Aloisi. I live in Ward 2, and my green belt is very important to me. My property line is 1 foot from the sidewalk. So I treat the green belt as my front yard. It sounds like there's a lot of great ideas going around about what to do, and I'll be interested to see how it resolves itself. And just so my background, I am an architect. I started my practice 11 years ago to really make architecture affordable and approachable to homeowners. Been very successful in that. And I want to take that skill set into this legislative work. My job right now is to go into people's homes and ask them what they need and how can I help. And I see that as no different. So that's how I plan on leading my platform.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. I see 2 hands and we have about 4 minutes. And so is it just a check-in? Oh.
Yeah, I'm Sarah. I realize I also didn't introduce myself during the introductions. But hi. I'm from Ward 7. I am on the steering committee, but I'm taking my steering committee hat off for this announcement. I'm part of a group called Soil Cycle BTV that is beginning to offer compost pickup. So in the neighborhood and keeping our nutrients in the neighborhood to build soil. So if you're interested in connecting more about that with me, happy to chat. I also keep an eye out on Front Porch Forum. We're hoping to have some folks sign up if you're interested. There's also a bit.ly bit.ly/soil cycle online, but I can talk to you in person about that. So just wanted to.
Thank you.
Mark Montalban, Ward 4. So briefly, we have DBW come here. The bigger subject I've seen, because I do deliveries of different products through the city of Burlington and elsewhere, is the heavy on the pedal, the cutting through. I swear, I don't know what it is, but when they cross the new North End, somehow people get a little more wilder. And I'm not generalizing because I actually stopped a few places to observe this. And we have a lot of people crossing through lights, stop signs, passing the buses when they're going, and it seems a little more dramatic in this part of town. So I kind of want the broader issue to bring to the city council because, and I kid you not, and I'll just mention one note. When I take the bus and I get off the bus, I can get off Carioca. I do not, because I've come close to people like swiping right by me. And there's nothing more scary to have someone in a truck come by about 3 feet away from you, and you know they're seeing you. So I go to around Northgate, come back on Green Acres. And I talk to some people on Green Acres, they say when they take the bus, we come around because even though those are those signal lights. And then when I'm taking the bus, I talk to a few other people because I used to be a social worker, I'm very social. People say, yes, we are very nervous. And it's something, I mean, you know, I think a lot of us are nodding our heads. This has to be addressed because those lights were put there because we had a gentleman with a dog who was fortunately killed by a driver Christmas a couple of years ago. Actually, that same cross area has had issues and people have been hit. So I think the city, we need to have a general discussion about safety and why people seem to be more reckless and endangering pedestrians and bicyclists. And enough said. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I see one more hand in the back. We're at the end of our public forum time. We also, though, are in a spot where it seems like some elected officials who are on the agenda may not be coming. And so I'll run this back to you and we'll just extend the public comment by a couple of minutes because I think we have that wiggle room.
I was going to definitely agree with what Mark just said. I definitely noticed since 2020, there's been a lot more things that I also see as both a walker and a driver. People are blatantly just running stop signs, red lights. And often as a walker, when I do, you know, try to counteract and say, hey, you need to stop, you need to do this. I'm definitely learning that some of it is that they don't care, and other is I'm also learning people don't understand the rules or they don't understand the laws. So I've gotten into a few arguments with people in car while I'm walking about how they are legally required to stop at a crosswalk if they are able. Obviously, I'm not going to go out in front of a car, but if I see a car coming and they see me, theoretically, they are able to stop and they choose not to. And I've often been told that they don't have to. I'm required to stop at stop signs. I'm like, I'm not a car. I'm not a bike. I'm a person walking. So I think that's one of the bigger issues, in addition to just this lack of not caring, is that doing some sort of promotional or marketing something, I don't know what the word is, but to get the word about these are the actual laws that people need to abide by, otherwise they get ticketed.
All right, thank you. And Councilor Carpenter, you have one other thought.
This evening is the Burlington Democrats annual meeting. I know that's where Councilor Litwin is. Your current state legislator from 17 is there as well. Abby Duke. So Evan's there, Abby's there. I know they are both going to come. I wouldn't be surprised if Representative Odie and Hooper are they. Oh, she's ill. Okay, well, that's not good. So I just wanted you to know there's a conflict, and I think they may be coming.
That's good context. Thank you. All right. I think that that is the end of public forum, and looks like conveniently it's also the end of people raising hands to speak. And so at this point, we'll shift over to city councilors update. So Councilor Barlow, Councilor Carpenter, I'm not sure how you folks want to divide the time, but we've got 10 minutes to hear from you and then 10 minutes for questions.
Also represents the school board. That's a local guy.
Again, Sarah Carpenter, Ward 4. I haven't seen you for a bit because we've been spending, as we're told by our Chief Administrative Officer, the marvelous nights. It was actually the marvelous nights of April and the marvelous nights of May on the city budget. So I'll kind of start with that and really open it up for questions. There's been a lot in the press for you to follow. It's really been occupying the council's time for really since the mayor was elected. In Vermont, it's a very awkward calendar. Excuse me. You elect a new mayor on April 1, and your fiscal year starts on July 1. That gives you a grand total of about 2.5 months to figure it all out. And as you well have heard, we started the year with a gap, and we've known that for many months. It has been exacerbated a little bit by a couple of accounting errors that had to do with the grand list and as it relates to the TIF district and the interfund transfers of costs for benefits. But I think we have had a very collaborative process of trying to fill those. I do want to sort of clarify the gap isn't quite as ominous as it may have sounded. There's about a good $3+ million, $4 million. Yeah, $3 million in obligations that we have every year around debt service and retirement accounts. We knew those were coming. We know they come every year. Statutorily, there's a process where they're paid for, and automatically we have to pay for them through the property tax. So that so-called gap was really already filled. And then we certainly have been aware of the other gaps. We have had the largesse of a lot of federal money for the last 3 years. Most of that's gone or going away. And we've really got to right size to fix that. The end gap in our budget process was still filling some of the hole with one-time money. That will make next year incredibly painful. And so I think we, as tough as this year was and is, next year will be even worse. We've got to figure out how to get rid of that one-time money or supplement that one-time money, either with revenue or cuts. We had been in hopes of receiving an organizational study that had been commissioned for probably 6 months ago. It's my understanding the mayor's office has just received it. So councilors are not, we have not received it yet. And that's our work starting July 1. It's to start next year's budget. I think we're going to find in that study, although neither Mark or I have seen it or Evan, it's going to recall, we're going to have to buckle up and there's going to be some, I think, difficult changes. So this year we were able to get into the fiscal year with not too much pain. We've tweaked throughout the budget a number of belt tightening things. We are leaving at least 18 positions vacant. Mark and I were able to work on making sure that we had full funding for community support officers to support the police department and all the work they do. We've put in some additional money for officer recruitment, and we've held on to a position for housing code enforcement. So those are all pluses. But like I said, we've got a lot of belt tightening to do. The budget contains 2 cents of the 3 cents of the public safety tax that you all voted on in March. That did not give us quite enough to fill the gap. And the alternative proposals were to raise the hotel tax, which has been raised from, is it 2% to 4%, I believe? And then the local option tax, which is basically rooms and meals and other services, 0.5%. So kind of with the whole mix of stuff, we've gotten to the place we're at. There's again, online, lots of information. And so I'm sort of happy to answer questions and try to be more specific if that's helpful to folks. Mark?
Yeah, I'll start off the bat. So I'm a small business person. I'm a homeowner, Green Acres Homestead. And gotta talk loud enough? Okay. Part of the issue I think we're dealing with is just that Burlington has a huge non-taxable level here on the grand list. And all things, it's interesting because I talk to folks, and I don't want to dwell into how many people I talk with, but I don't think people really from Essex Junction, Colchester, really, or even South Burlington realize that as property taxes, how much of a burden it goes into. And I think, I'll be kind of radical about it because I even had someone who's actually a couple of Republican friends actually say that the whole taxation thing has to change because 2 things are happening. One is it is shocking like what developers and certain people, because I have a homestead that's built that it could turn into a wonderful R&B and make 68,000 a month, but I'm not about to leave because that's my homestead. It's where I live with my kid. And I don't want to digress too much, but the pressure of the upscaling or gentrification on our city, considering that a lot of us, I think, honestly, are very much income poor, to be honest, and property rich. And will we finally, because we've been trying to address these issues the last 40 years around affordability, is it more of finally changing how we tax, which is obviously under the home rule is going to impact the state? Because we're all sort of suffering about it, because the other hand, Burlington is still the place to go for resources, services, and everything, but it's the fact that I don't want our city to turn into some of the more what they call the rich towns where you can't even afford to live here and you have to commute somewhere else to be here. And how many people I know who live in Vermont who live in what they call the Golden Triangle, which means their wages are higher between Colchester, Shelburne, and Williston, right? Some people even have kids who grew up here and they commute 2 hours in because the wages are higher here, but they live 2 hours out. And it seems to be just expanding like markedly, like within a short amount of time. So I just think the city should really work with the state legislature to review this because there's a burden. I support. I think everyone did a great job. This was like one of the most diplomatic city council situations I've seen in a long time. It's about time it happened because the bottom line is we want our city to thrive, but it's like we need to change how property taxes are. And also in some ways, to be honest, even though the state is supposedly suffering, I find that the state really takes our city for granted and really overall don't seem to want to put enough into the infrastructure, into literally the Queen City, as they would the smaller rural towns within our state. So I'm bringing up 2 issues. How can we get more respect from our state where funds go? And really, should we really finally consider how we get our revenue?
I'm just thinking about structure because the agenda, I think it makes sense to adapt it a little bit because we have 40 minutes until our meeting ends. And I believe you three are the only representatives here. So I would leave it up to you. We may have more representatives arrive, but I would leave it up to you. Would you like to do your half of talking and then open up for questions, or would you like to take questions as they come?
I'm happy to take questions. I mean, I think Mark's points are very valid, and I'll let Martine hop in with her state hat and Mark with his background. It is a complex issue for sure. And not to not support the schools. 70% of our property taxes are school education taxes. So I'm only talking about sort of our 30%. And the tough thing, as you well read in the legislature, is the state ed tax. So I'm going to let Martine kind of take that. I don't think Martine would disagree with me that it is very, very difficult in this environment to get the attention of the state legislature around Burlington. And one of the impacts we all have talked about is the burden on this city for the unhoused and those with substance use disorder. We need to support those folks, but we don't have the right revenue source as a municipality to do that. Even, and I don't know if any of you heard me speak on Monday, one of my comments was I had to the treasurer, keep a little side book because there's just modest things. I mean, we approved $500,000 for modest things like more support for the library, putting porta potties out there, and continuing the overdose program from the fire department. These are not radically big ideas, but that's still $500,000 out of our pockets that honestly, in my opinion, ought to be supported by the state. And we don't even have enough of that. So that's a sort of bigger picture, Martine. Again, I'll let Martine get that one.
I'm just because I just wanted to weigh in on Mark's comments about the tax base. Basically, there's a lot of state property, and they do not pay property tax. We get payment in lieu of taxes at a rate that's set annually by the legislature. I think it's $750,000, and we get for all. That's UVM. That's all the state offices. That's everything. Yeah, and it's also like in educational institutions like Champlain College is partially tax exempt. And so we have a lot of that. We also have property that pays that's not profit, or the utilities in the city, they pay payment in lieu of taxes. We are currently going to reevaluate the payment in lieu of taxes structure. Insofar as we can affect that, we're going to make some changes. That study couldn't be slotted into this year's budget cycle, but I think there's every intention of making sure that we try to implement some changes by FY26.
Yes, please do that. I just want to echo what you said, Mark. When I first got on the school board, I remember how frustrated I was to see all of these properties across the city that are used by folks who don't live here. They come into Burlington and take advantage of all our wonderful nonprofits and our hospital and our university, and then they leave. And we're not generating tax from these properties. So, and the payment in lieu of taxes, or the services in lieu of taxes, I should say, is a nice thing, but I don't think it comes nearly, close to what they would be, paying if they were to actually be paying their property taxes. So I'm excited about that. I look forward to it. And then just with regard to the atmosphere in Montpelier, I agree. I see that there is a bit of a schism between rural Vermont and the cities, urban Vermont, and it's unfortunate. We have massive problems that we need to tackle, and pitting, cities against towns or rural areas against urban areas is just not helpful. So I hear you, Mark, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on that.
We could probably talk about the budget all night, and so I can take a few more questions. I don't know if there's other issues that you would like us to update. Just for me, any more budget questions, and then okay. I just in terms of some of the things in addition to serving on the Board of Finance. I serve on the Human Resources Committee, and we'll have our work cut out next year relative to, I think, reorganization. I can't say I'm excited, but I'm appreciative that we're going to start a new process of evaluation of department heads, and I think that's something that will serve us well. The other, welcome Representative Hooper. The other committee that I serve on is charter change. Right now, we are in the finishing process of a charter recommendation related to oversight of the police department. We've been working on this probably way too long. We're hoping to get something to the July 15th meeting that would be on the November ballot. And as soon as we're meeting again on Monday, after multiple meetings, and as soon as we have that finalized, I'll make sure to get it out and look for your input. I think we're at a very balanced point, and I hope it's something that we can all agree on.
I'll speak about some other things that we've been doing on the council. We recently appointed about 40 people and reappointed people to the various boards and commissions we have around the city. Every year, we go through a process where we appoint people to all these committees. And we had a committee on the city council of 4 city councilors and a representative from the mayor's office who came to agreement on all but just a few of these positions. And so one of the things is there are openings on boards and commissions still. So I'd encourage folks, if you're interested in serving, is going to the burlingtonvt.gov website under city council page. There's a boards and commissions page, and there's a vacancies page there, and you can see what's open. And if you're interested, talk to Councilor Carpenter or myself, and we can get you hooked up. Also, there's been 2 resolutions related to building emissions that the council's passed and referred to the Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee that I sit on. One is about considering how we might reduce emissions in buildings through ordinance. We'll be looking at what other cities are doing around something that's generally called a buildings emission reduction ordinance. And we're going to start that work in July. And it may start out as simply as trying to understand what the baseline is citywide by requiring disclosure. So we may require buildings to go through a testing so we understand, how much energy they're using, because we can estimate that now, but we really don't know. The other thing we're doing is reviewing our rental weatherization ordinance that we passed back in 2022, requiring rental buildings to go through a weatherization process. The problem we've had is there's no workforce to do the work. So we have a lot of properties that are in compliance, but they're in compliance because they're in the queue to get the work done, not because they've actually done the work that we want them to do. So we're going to review where we are with that and try to maybe through state programs and through some money that's come to the city through raise grants, try to figure out how to do the workforce development or support the workforce development that we need to do so we can get people in those jobs to do this work in the city. So we're going to be starting that process in July as well. The other thing that I'm excited about, and it's a little thing, but it's it's a big thing if you're part of the traveling public, is that we've had one of the things on the Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee that we ended up doing is serving as the vehicle for higher licensing board in the city, because we didn't have anybody serving on that board. Bill Kehill, I think, was the last serving member. So we took over the responsibility, and in that role, we got a lot of complaints from travelers that would come to Burlington and pay exorbitant amounts of money to get a cab ride. Even to come out here to New North End, they were charging some people like $30, $40 for a cab ride out here. So we started a process and we got some people onto the board, and that board's been doing good work, and I've been supporting them. And we have new taxi rates, and we have these 2 ordinances now that are also going to be coming online shortly. They're in the process of being reviewed by the Airport Commission and by the City Council, but they're going to require that the cabs at the airport if they're in the queue, have to use their meters. They can't just negotiate rates. So they'll have to use meters and they'll have to take credit cards because a lot of them are cash only. And when we're done with that, we're going to try to go to also to see about getting like a phone app system to hail cabs with installed. So that sounds like a little thing, but if you come to Burlington, you land at 10 p.m. and you're trying to get a cab some nights, it's really challenging. The last thing I'll end with is I just want to give, this is more of a heads up than anything else, but Green Mountain Transit, our bus system, they're facing a fiscal cliff in this coming year. And it's going to, if we don't find a way to fix it, we're going to have bus service cuts. And this is real concerning. It's something, again, we've been regularly hearing about from the general manager, Clayton Clark at Green Mountain Transit in the Transportation, Energy and Utilities Committee. But I just want to flag it for everybody because Burlington is the biggest user of GMT and the biggest funder. I think our assessment is 53% of all the assessments municipally. So we're the majority sort of payer for municipalities paying into that system. And we might be faced with cuts to our bus system. And so they're going through a lot of process now. I'm hoping that our friends in the legislature will find some additional funding for GMT so we don't end up having to have those cuts. But those are my updates. Happy to take questions if anybody has.
And I apologize for interrupting before questions happen or before Representative Gulick takes over. I just want to check in about our Zoom participants. Can everybody online hear okay? And is anybody having any trouble hearing the discussion? Okay. And then how about in the room? Is anyone having trouble hearing? Okay. Thank you.
I do not sit on the transportation committee, but we will do what we can because this is an important issue. It's about accessibility and it's about the climate and using public transportation as best we can. Just again, by the way, I want to say it's so nice to be here. I used to come to the NPA every month, but when I serve in the legislature between January and May, I stay in Montpelier. I don't drive back and forth every night. So it's hard for me to get here during those months. It's about an hour from my door to the State House. But we all know it's not easy to get to the New North End. So I tend to stay there. And it's really great to see all of you. The attendance has blossomed from the last time that I was here. So this is great. I know tonight is not about me campaigning, but I do want you to know I am on the ballot again, and there is an election August 13th. I've been knocking on doors and people don't know that there's a primary. We're all hyper-focused on November, as we should be, but it's important for folks to make a plan for August 13th. Ballots will not be going out automatically. You have to request one if you want to vote by mail. Otherwise, you can show up on at your polling station on the 13th. But I did just want to say I serve on the Education Committee and the Health and Welfare Committee. And I know there is a lot of talk about hard times and taxes, and we've been talking a lot. I wanted to share a little bit of good news with you, which is that we passed 3, I think, really pivotal laws this year. In our healthcare committee, they were all signed into law. One was S98, which is going to give the Green Mountain Care Board authority over pharmaceutical drug prices. So we are going to see, hopefully, some costs going down for pharmaceuticals in the state, which is really exciting. Along with that, H766 is a bill that is really going to stop the practice of prior authorization. Yeah, it is really important. We heard over and over and over again that the practice of prior authorization, especially in primary care, nurses and doctors are spending hours and hours a day filling out these prior authorization forms and going through the hoops that they need to go to for insurance companies. And by minimizing this practice, we're going to allow healthcare professionals to really directly care for their patients. So that was also a really exciting one. The last one, which is H233, is about pharmacy benefit managers. And there is a great article in the New York Times. I recommend that you read it. PBMs are the ultimate middleman. They drive up healthcare costs because they are in the middle of setting drug prices, but also getting sort of like kickbacks from drug companies and from medical practitioners. And it's a scam. So we have, this bill is really going to minimize what they can do here in the state of Vermont. We're going to really try to rein in their power. So those are 3 things that I think we should all be excited about. I did want to briefly speak to a point that Mark brought up about speeding. I put in a bill this year, I think it's 184, that came to me. It was actually last year, Mark, you and I were at the Bagel, and there was a family came in and they talked about the speeding on Ethan Allen Parkway. And I said, you know what, we should try speed cameras because they work. In other countries, they use them a lot. So I put in a bill for speed cameras, or at least the bill would have allowed municipalities the option of using speed cameras in certain areas. And it went into the transportation committee and it was looking really good. In the end, what came out was a 1-year pilot in work zones. So it's better than nothing, but we didn't really get what we wanted. So I may bring that back again if I get reelected. I think it's really important. We don't have the police force to really, do the traffic stops where they need to be located. And we also are just, I had a long talk with Chief Murad yesterday, and between staffing and just the issues that they've had around traffic stops generally, and the fact that they are actually quite dangerous, this technology could be really useful. So I just want to say thank you for bringing that up. It's really important. Otherwise, I am happy. I was on the drive with Kurt Wright this morning, so I have a lot of notes. But I'm happy to take questions if there are general questions about the legislature, about the session, or anything like that. Jane Saturday. Okay. I can go.
I'm Jane McDonald. I live in Ward 7. And I listened to Mark. He said Green Mountain Transit is at a fiscal cliff. What does that mean?
Sorry, thank you for checking me on jargon. It means that they will not have the revenue to provide the service levels. The revenues that they need to provide the current service levels won't be there in fiscal 26.
Is that because of the COVID funding in the past?
It's because of the state legislature, and the federal government not giving them enough grant money so that they want to raise 10% of their operating revenues from the assessments that they make to municipalities in Vermont.
Is Green Mountain Transit a privately owned company, or is it part of the city?
No,
or
I think
how does that?
They're municipality in and to themselves, I think. Instrumentality.
Or a public entity. They're a public entity. Let me put that. I mean,
because my question is, if they weren't a public entity, why do we feel like we need to go fund them? But now I understand why we want to do that.
Part of your we were talking about taxes. If you ever look at your tax bill, there are 18 taxes. So there's a lot of, we call them, one of them is a tax from Green Mountain Transit. One is to pay for the county courthouse. So we have a lot of taxes. So they have taxing authority, but we have to approve it. It's the city who actually, or the municipality who approves how much. I think ours is almost $2 million. But it's only a small portion, and the cutbacks from the federal and state grants have been problematic.
Okay. And then for Martine, you said you're going to do something about reducing pre-auths. My question when I heard that was, is that going to drive insurers out of the state of Vermont?
That was definitely some rhetoric that we heard in some of our committees. Yes. And it got fairly heated. That remains to be seen. the bottom line is, I mean, some of it, for example, I could just give you my personal example. I've lived in foreign countries where there were no prior authorizations. They just didn't exist. Doctors would assess a patient, and then with their knowledge and their expertise, they would treat their patient. Prior authorizations were just not a
Where
thing.
did you live before? I'm sorry.
I've lived in the Czech Republic and Germany. I was born in Japan, so I have experience in
I have
other
to say,
their systems.
I always have a problem with comparing other countries. I know they have really great ideas, but they also have different structures in terms of government and all the other structures that fall around the society. So in Vermont, we're a small community, a small state. And I've lived here since 2000, and I've seen insurers leave the state. And that was my question.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. The reason I like to give that example is because there is a world where prior authorizations don't exist. I just like to point that out. You know, they aren't unnecessarily something that is needed to provide care to patients. I think the genesis of this bill came from the fact that primary care providers are just being broken by this system. We are losing primary care doctors and providers.
Disagree with that.
Yeah, because they can't operate. And I know someone wants to speak in the back.
You know, part of the challenge is most of them do get approved. And if it's provider to provider, they practically approve it 90% of the time, but you have to go through many, many hoops before that can happen. And that's part of what's so challenging, is to the people who work in the office and to us ordering things. Because if they're usually going to order it anyway or approve it anyway, like, don't make us, it's a lot of work to do all the prior auths.
Yeah, it is.
We've got a question over here that I want to make room for.
But Jane, thank you for the question. As you may have read in the newspaper, our healthcare system right now is broken and it's teetering on the brink of collapse. So sorry, I don't have better news for you, but yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah, really, it's a good point. And I will keep you posted.
Okay, oh, thanks. Yeah. So maybe if it's all right, I'll ask you folks to hold your instructions for just a moment because somebody had a question. I assume it's on that topic. And then as soon as that's done, please introduce yourself.
I applaud what you did on prior authorization, but my big concern is that you didn't look at the state of Vermont and Medicaid, because they require so much prior authorization that is not necessary, including transportation. Medicaid pays for my chair as well as Medicare, but my doctor put down that I'm permanently disabled. I was denied Medicaid transportation because this year he didn't put it down because he put it down last year. So therefore it took me 3 months to get approved for SSTA again. I'm just saying to you that you're looking only at private parties and you're not looking at the big picture, and I hope that you do that.
Thank you for bringing that up. I will take that back to my Health and Welfare Committee. We were able to expand Medicaid a little bit this year, but not nearly as much as we had hoped. But I appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Thanks for pausing. And then if you folks want to just go ahead and introduce yourself. And also when you're providing your updates, please just keep in mind that, oh no, you were in line. You're all right. We've got 15 minutes left. So we want to hear your updates. And we also want to make sure that we're taking questions as they come, since that's the format that we're going with. Thank you.
Great, thank you. My name's Abby Duke. I know many of you, but not all of you. I was appointed to the legislature in May to take over the Chittenden 17 seat, which was vacated by Emma Mulvaney Stanek when she was elected mayor. And I would like to, so I'm sorry I'm late, so I missed a lot of the meeting. We were at the Democratic reorganizing meeting that happens yearly. And my one thing I'd like to point out, this is a little bit of a plug for a transportation vehicle, which is Evan here and I left the meeting, which is at the library, within a couple minutes of each other. And I went out front and unlocked my electric bicycle and rode it here. And he went to find his car and drive up here. And I beat him. You all saw it. I beat him by a mile. Yeah. Right? Exactly. So, anyway, I just want to introduce myself. Those of you who were at the last meeting got to hear a lot from me. So I'm going to pass it on to Evan, and I'm here to answer questions. And so.
Well, thanks. And I am sorry I'm late. I was at that important meeting, but I hate not hearing what everybody else had to say, so I don't want to repeat and take up more time. But I really have to thank Martine for everything you did in the State House this session. You're such an important asset to our community, and I hope people realize that. And I don't know if you brought up the appointment of the education secretary, but Martine was really instrumental in helping to make sure that we did not have that education secretary. So thank you, Martine. Fighting hard for that. And as an educator, dedicated educator, I can see you've got the rubber band bracelet. So you always can tell an educator by the rubber band bracelet. I will focus mostly because I'm on committees with these folks here. And so they've probably covered it, but I'll focus more on, I'm thinking a lot about public safety right now. And I was asked a lot about public safety at the last meeting. I know we have a real serious situation downtown. I'm thinking about it a lot. I'm taking a lot of emails from folks feeling unsafe. I had the unfortunate privilege to sit with a Ward 7 constituent just a few weeks ago who was violently attacked by a random passerby on their way home from dinner. And that was really frightening and challenging for her and her family. And it changes their relationship with the marketplace. So I am thinking a lot about the marketplace. I've been walking around in our parking garages, walking around in alleyways, visiting the library when I'm driving by, which I encourage everyone to do. I met with the library director yesterday, or the days blur together now, to just see what she's sort of battling. And it is very eye-opening. And then I've also met with the director of the Burlington Technical School to find out what their security situation is, what their needs are. Again, illuminating, shocking to see what the staff have to go through to make sure that students are safe during transitions. They have 3 transitions a day. They have students coming from 9 towns. Some students are not re-enrolling, which is a financial loss to the school. They've advised students not to use parking garages. They've had staff who have been attacked at knife point while walking to parking garages. So we do have a real public safety situation downtown. That doesn't mean that it's unsafe all the time. We had a beautiful Juneteenth celebration. Sarah and I were volunteering at the merch table. If you didn't get your custom bag, you missed out. And it was just a beautiful day and really vibrant and no security issues. So the other piece, I hear a lot from folks who have been writing me about the encampment that's been authorized in Ward 7 at the waterfront. I'll just tell you quickly my position on it, which is I have gone down, I have toured it with Councilor Carpenter, seen the situation. My concerns will be that, and we need to give the mayor time. She is responding as quickly, I think, as she can, but that it's clean, that it's hygienic, that it's safe, that it does not become a space with a great deal of criminal activity. And I am opposed to allowing the tenting inside the urban reserve, which is marked as prohibited, which is a differentiation from the memo that the mayor had provided us in the working session, which has now changed in the budgetary, in the budget that we passed. I noticed that the urban reserve was funded and authorized. So the urban reserve is the area of the woods that's right on the bike path near the dog park on the waterfront. And so I recognize that we have certain legal obligations and ethical and moral obligations to support people who are struggling. But it needs to have a plan. That's not to say that there isn't one in the works, but I'm not against supporting folks who need help. But I do want to see us move those tents out of the urban reserve as per the ordinances and the policies that we actually have. I don't know if we talked about public safety, but excellent.
And I would like to say it's a shame that there isn't a more coordinated statewide program for homelessness.
Hi, I'm Bob Hooper. Carol and I represent Chittenden 18. I know that she's feeling a little ill, which is probably why she isn't here. I'd like to just point out, since everybody was taking exception to our transportation issue, I got here 20 minutes before both of them and I stopped and got a milkshake. So I'm just saying. I'm going to run through some really quick things. Sarah, for a constituent, came to me and said, on Star Farm Road, there was a school crossing basically that was unmarked. It had not been redone for a long time. And I mentioned it to Sarah, and I'd say probably within 3 weeks it was out and signs were up and everybody was happy. So thank you very much. Now I put this on, the bus situation. We have to keep in mind that over the course of the last couple of years, the feds just dumped money into Vermont's budget. And then it quickly disappeared. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to be saying we expanded or funded previously, and we're going to have to look at how we're going to fund those things in the future. As far as legislative agendas, I was sitting on my back porch this week and I saw a firefly, which, being from Pennsylvania, you used to run around when you were a kid and get jars full of them. I don't think I've seen one in Vermont for 10 years, but there was one in my backyard. And that caused me to think, I'm really glad that this year we passed a bill that dealt with pesticides and giving animals and plants and other things a good chance to come back. We're killing stuff much faster than we realize. And on a negative note, I'd been thinking for a good while, reading 7 Days and reading stuff that comes out of our legislative leadership, that there's a lot of anger around the state over some of the stuff that has been done. And I was pretty pleased that we weren't having that here. I don't know that any of the people up here had mentioned that anybody had been calling them and threatening their lives. There was an article in 7 Days now about somebody that had gotten arrested basically for doing so. We're here. I didn't think that was working. We're here because we're accessible to talk to. My joy in not hearing from anybody was tempered somewhat the other day when I found a dead possum in my front yard that had been probably dead for 5 days because it was so rigid. But it went away and I sort of laughed it off. But, you know, I think everybody will say, you got a problem, call us. Every time I write something, I put an email address or a phone number. That's what we're here for. That's why we're sticking our necks out and doing the job for you. So if you want something different, talk. We'll listen. Thank you.
Yeah, what, 4 minutes? About 4.5 minutes. If there's any questions, we can move forward. Yeah, move over with the microphone.
Politics. I think part of the country and having, we have a town that will not with regional transportation. And the town, which I was told very much guilty and has been resisted for, I think actually reason around class and race. To be very honest, is our neighbor Colchester. And someone should remember, if we've been around here long enough, is that we were trying to provide transportation to the students at St. Mike's and had to go all into the Supreme Court of Vermont, where basically they cannot prevent buses because somehow, and this is in the records, and we're only talking about a generation ago, about certain people taking the bus coming there. And then the resistance, when we finally built the bridge that was going to destroy that neighborhood. Well, people who live over in Colchester, the bike access increased the value of their property 30 to 40% once that was built. Now, I have issues with Colchester because they are a growing town, a lot of people, and there are many folks talk about access, transportation, that if we are able to, I'm probably going to Chapin's fans, but there's two people from the city, right, who are on our regional committee. I think Chapin's one of them, is really to argue and put pressure on it because not only is time for dropping out, that appears, which is a problem, but Colchester is a lot of money and resources. And if we can pull them in, it will help buffer how much we pay. Milton is in a situation that Milton's putting money into it. And I know folks in when I do a farmer's market in Milton who basically say, well, it's interesting because we do take the bus and come in and we think, but we're only allowed one stop in Colchester. Colchester has done everything possible. I know this is going on the airways, but they need to hear it. The town, you know, folks there, is that you cannot get a stop in Colchester. You can go up to Milton, you can go to Burlington. So I think part of it is a regional issue. Why can't we have all the general cities, maybe, you know, even Westford, even Huntington, if we had truly a genuine county-wide thing to share the burden, Burlington will not have to be the person, the queen city to go to for everything. And that's my rant. So.
Can I just say something real quick? I think, is this on? I think one of the best things about Vermont and one of the most challenging things about Vermont is the town, is the local people. We have 251, I believe, municipalities. 252. So when we think about the duplication of effort, I think it certainly is coming up with the issues of finance and so hers. I hear you, and I think that there's a lot of issues that plays into the different competing town priorities. Let's have a forum on town. Yeah, right. I'm going to get the last one. Remember that democracy is a participatory sport, and please vote in the August primary. Thank you. We're here if you have any questions. Before we officially wrap up, just please take note that the Ward 4 and 7 NPAs will not be meeting for the month of July and August. Our next meeting is going to be in September.
Wednesday.
So we're taking a break for July and August, so we'll see you back in September. If you have questions, you can reach out to me. All right, thank you.